With the release of the Fantastic Four First Steps, we now have 37 movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There are some bangers in there, no doubt, of course, but there's also films in the MCU that other people claim are great, when in reality, they're overrated. So what are those movies? Today, that's what we're discussing. Now, my argument for an MCU movie being overrated will be based on its Rotten Tomatoes score. For all of these, I think there should have been more critics on the platform who wouldn't recommend the film, as opposed to recommending it, which resulted in all of the MCU movies I'm talking about today having pretty good or even great ratings on the website. So without further ado, these are the most overrated MCU movies in my opinion. First up is Black Panther. It has a mind-blowing Rotten Tomatoes score of a 96%. Okay, don't get me wrong, Black Panther is a good movie. It's far from bad, but is it anywhere close to being worthy of receiving a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes? I don't even know if some of the best MCU movies like Infinity War or The Winter Soldier are worthy of such a score, let alone Black Panther. Keep in mind too, this is the MCU movie with the highest score on Rotten Tomatoes. However, I highly doubt most people would rank it number 1 out of 37 entries. The best elements of Black Panther off the top of my head include the soundtrack. It's fire. Kendrick Lamar did a great job with that. Some of the visuals are impressive. The action can be entertaining. I like the characters a lot, especially Killmonger, played by Michael B. Jordan. He's definitely still one of the MCU's best villains ever introduced to the universe. And of course, Chadwick Boseman is iconic. He was a great choice for T'Challa. R.I.P. He was greatly missed as the character in Wakanda Forever. Plus, Black Panther has a lot to say about heritage and traditions, which I like a lot. But besides giving us those things, what else is there about Black Panther that makes it stand out? Nothing, really, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, it pretty much goes down that basic formulaic MCU route that so many others before it and after it have done so as well. What is the basic MCU formula, you ask? Well, you introduce the titular character, he eventually meets the villain, there's some back and forth, eventually the hero will fall and the villain will rise towards the end, and then when all is said and done, the hero overcomes the villain, and that's the movie. You have a big battle between the two. That's almost what every first entry to a larger series in the MCU has done. And so I'm not sure why people let Black Panther off the hook despite following that MCU formula. Like I said, this is a good movie. I don't have too many problems with it, but it never goes into incredible territory like I was hoping for back in 2018 when it debuted. So that 96% on Rotten Tomatoes for me was not fully earned. Up next is Spider-Man No Way Home, which held up an impressive 93%. Quick story for you all. So when Spider-Man No Way Home came out around Christmas time in 2021, I was so excited. This was one of my most anticipated films of that year, if not my most anticipated. And keep in mind, this came out around the time when that Omicron virus from COVID was there, and still people packed in my theater. They did not care about COVID this night, opening night. It was a Thursday, because all they wanted to see was the third Spider-Man movie as part of the Tom Holland trilogy. And it was a great night. I went into that movie so excited. I left the theater so happy that I loved it. And then, well, things changed the next day, because I saw the movie again the following night on Friday and quickly realized, ooh, maybe this movie isn't as good as I thought 24 hours prior. And that's because the entire time, all I wanted to see on rewatch was Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Easily the best part of No Way Home is when Andrew Garfield and Tobey are interacting with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. These three on screen had great chemistry. It was so much fun seeing them in the movie together. And of course, I was going bonkers to see both Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire return as Peter Parker. This was what I wanted for so many years, and to finally get it after all that time growing up watching the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies was a dream come true. If you take both of the actors out of the movie though, how good is Spider-Man No Way Home still? I can tell you what, it's definitely not as good of a movie. I don't think No Way Home would have a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes if it weren't for the appearance of both Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. There's just no way. And I know you have the villains return here, like Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Electro, Sandman, and so on and so forth. But I don't think they go the distance with those characters. They never reach their full potential here. And I guess because John Watts figured, oh, you've seen these villains in the other Spider-Man movies, so why bother having any character development for them in No Way Home when you already know who they are? Well, I thought that was kind of lazy, and they do the same thing for Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. They do a little development for Andrew Garfield with the Zendaya scene, and that was it though. I found it weird too how Tobey's Peter and Willem Dafoe's Norman Osborn never interact. Why? Talk about missed opportunities. I much rather would have seen that interaction as opposed to Tom Holland's Spider-Man versus Green Goblin. It irked me that the film thought we cared more about Tom Holland's Peter/Spider-Man over that of Tobey and Andrew. I get it. We already saw the Andrew and Tobey Spider-Man movies, but they could have done something more special there at the end with Tobey and Andrew's Spider-Mans rather than what they ultimately did. So yeah, 93% I think is crazy. It should have been more in the range of 70 to 75%. I'm pretty sure most critics just like this one only because of the appearance from both Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. Take those two actors out of the film and I don't think people like it as much. Then there's Ant-Man and the Wasp coming in with an 87% Rotten Tomatoes score. Here we have another movie I liked on first watch. Then, after rewatch, I realized, well, Ant-Man and the Wasp is not actually that good. One thing I liked about it initially was the pacing. This is a very fast-paced film. But because Ant-Man and the Wasp is so focused on entertaining you, the filmmakers forgot to add in elements that make a movie good outside of just being entertaining. You can kiss character development goodbye. You want a focused plot? Forget about it. They gotta have Walton Goggins in here for some reason, along with Ghost, a character who, after all these years, I still don't know very much about. Not to mention Michelle Pfeiffer's Janet Van Dyne holds a share of the plot as well. And never once do they give us answers on how she survived in the quantum realm for so many years, making that one of the biggest MCU plot holes to date. And the film is just rushed. It came out directly after Avengers Infinity War, and I guess they thought it'd be a nice change of pace going from that epic dark vibe to something less serious where your mind is solely focused on some entertaining action sequences and Paul Rudd antics. However, that wasn't enough for me here, and there isn't much else to Ant-Man and the Wasp in general. Hence why I have Ant-Man and the Wasp as overrated, and 87% is a high score for an otherwise okay MCU flick at best. Black Widow recorded a 79% on Rotten Tomatoes. Movie quality aside, simply put, Black Widow came out at the wrong time. Way too late. This movie released 2 years after Avengers Endgame. And if you didn't know, Black Widow dies in Endgame. So why do I care about a Black Widow movie? When it comes to the actual quality of the movie though, I think this is one of the 5 worst MCU installments. I remember I was excited going into my viewing of Black Widow, then left the theater more disappointed after an MCU viewing experience maybe in my entire life. You go in expecting phenomenal kick-ass action, and what you get instead are multiple action scenes in which you have to heavily suspend your disbelief. You go in expecting a great new villain in Taskmaster, but what they ultimately left us with was a villain who fell flat. And you go in expecting this to be Black Widow's most exceptional appearance yet in the MCU. But nope, it just ends up being kind of boring and dull. Overall, Black Widow is a very forgettable movie. I have not thought about Black Widow once since I reviewed it back in 2021 up until now, and I highly doubt I'll ever think of the movie again after this video. Finally, the last MCU movie I'm covering is the Fantastic Four First Steps, which as of this recording has an 87%. All right, I've said this many times over the last week about the Fantastic Four First Steps. This is a movie I think that's good. It doesn't do anything particularly wrong. It's an upgrade over pretty much everything we've ever gotten Fantastic Four wise up to this point. It's a movie that has some very impressive visuals. I like the cast. I think everyone does a good job. It's great we get to see Galactus in this iteration, unlike in Rise of the Silver Surfer, where he was just a cloud. They are digging the retro 60s vibe that's also futuristic, and I agree that was a good choice for the setting. Plus, to the delight of many, the Fantastic Four First Steps takes itself seriously. It's not a complete joke like we saw from 2005's Fantastic Four or Rise of the Silver Surfer. But with all that being said, I still don't think the Fantastic Four First Steps is a perfect movie. And why do I say that? Well, it's similar to how I felt about Black Panther. You know, it follows that formulaic MCU route where everything that happens was expected to happen before seeing the movie. You watch the trailer and you can pretty much guess where the film is going. The surprises are few and far between. I don't think there's a whole lot of memorable moments or moments that I would want to go back and rewatch. And First Steps is never firing on all cylinders from an emotional standpoint, action standpoint, or dramatic standpoint. It never reaches the heights that I wanted it to reach in those genres. Now, maybe I went into First Steps with too high of expectations before I saw the film. People were saying how great it is and that it's something extraordinary, it's so good, and something new, unlike anything else we've seen before in the MCU. Well, I don't think I can agree with that after watching the movie. I don't think I can agree at all. I like it, it's entertaining, the characters are solid, the setting looks great. Overall, though, nothing stood out to me from First Steps that makes me want to go back and rewatch it. And so many people keep pointing out how the characters are some of the best we've ever seen in the MCU, which is another thing I can't fully agree with. Pedro Pascal has been in so many movies and shows over the past 5 to 10 years that now when I see him in something, I just keep thinking, that's Pedro Pascal. Same with Vanessa Kirby. I've seen her in so many different things, and seeing her here as Sue Storm, all I thought to myself was, that's Vanessa Kirby. With a length of 1 hour and 55 minutes, there wasn't enough time to make these characters feel more special than they came off as. They even do a disservice to Johnny by not having him interact with other characters outside of the 3 Fantastic Four members. So, yeah, it would have been nice if this could have been a longer movie and that they had more time to throw in some special moments and make me care more, give us some more drama, give us better action sequences. I wanted more from this film and I feel like I never got there. Sorry, I had to go on that tangent for all the people who've been overly hyping up First Steps the last week. At the end of the day, 87% isn't too egregious, but if I were somehow able to control the Rotten Tomatoes scale, I would have placed First Steps again in the 65 to 70, 75% range. Anyway, those are the 5 most overrated MCU movies out of the 37 we have to pick from. Now I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What are the 5 most overrated MCU movies in your opinion? And why do you disagree with my list? Because I know a lot of you love No Way Home and First Steps, so tell me why you think I'm wrong for thinking those movies are overrated. Well, thank you all so much for watching this video. Real quick, if you enjoyed yourself and are new here, make sure to subscribe and click that like button. I'll catch you all in the next one. See you then.